Hey, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast, presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seidman, and he's Jim Salisbury. And Jim, the Phils are moving on to the end of this three-city road trip that began in Atlanta, continued in D.C., and then ends in Dunedin, Florida, against the Blue Jays. The middle part of that trip, the 3 games in D.C., looked like the Phillies might have been poised for a sweep, their first road sweep of the season. They did pick up their first road series win of the season, but it wasn't meant to be in the finale, despite a really good performance from Zach Wheeler. Let's just kind of go back to that series against the Nationals first, talk about the good and the bad of it, kind of go right through. Let's begin with the strong work by the bullpen in the first couple games of that series.
Yeah, I mean, you go in there and you take 2 out of 3. You wanted to get greedy on Thursday and go for your first 3-game sweep since the final days of the 2018 season. I wrote it. I forgot what it was. They haven't had a 3-game sweep in a while on the road. The bullpen was fabulous, especially in that second game, the night Odubel Herrera tied it in the 9th. If you look at the work that what Ranger Suarez did, getting out of a bases loaded jam in the 8th, kind of an unexpected contributor, right? He comes up from AAA. Pitches in a pressure pack situation, gets out of it. And then Alvarado gets out of a jam in the bottom of the 9th, setting them up to win in the 10th. Yeah. So the bullpen did a good job. And they have done a good job. It's just when they lose one, it blows up really big on you. So to get those 2 in Washington was huge. They hadn't won a road series of 3 or more games since 2019. And it was good to get that done.
Well, Hector Neris also kind of bouncing back from the blown save in Atlanta, comes back with 2 good performances against the Nationals. Very good for his confidence, I would say. And Joe Girardi, he's stuck with Neris, probably going to stick with him here for the foreseeable future, unless Neris blows a couple of those in like quick succession, I would think.
Yeah, and I neglected to mention Hector nailing it down. Did bounce back from a tough series in Atlanta. There's a lot of glare on Hector, a lot of pressure on Hector, because when he does blow one, it's usually spectacular. And he's had some ups and downs here, but credit where credit's due. Closed out a big win for them in Washington, after they rallied for 3 runs there in the 10th inning. Joe Girardi is not one to be particularly forthcoming with his plans in the bullpen, other than saying, Hector's this guy. I think Joe is one of these kind of new school managers that, they are always going to err on the side of building confidence and supporting their guys and having their guys back. I don't think he's ever going to come out and say, my faith in Hector is teetering a little bit. I don't think he's ever going to come out and say Hector's on a short leash. I don't think he's ever going to come out and say, I have other options at closer, like Coonrod, like Kinsler, like Alvarado, like Archie Bradley they're getting back. Because I just think he's a guy who is always going to have his players back. And that's important because confidence is so important in this game. If you don't feel like your boss believes in you, I guarantee you're going to stink. But I just wonder deep down inside whether Joe is kind of employing a short leash with Hector because he does have other options. Because Bradley, I think we're going to see Bradley Tuesday night come off the IL. Coonrod's done a heck of a job. Almost looks like he's ready for a look at closer. Obviously he's got closer stuff, wipeout stuff. Looks like he might have the kind of the mental fortitude to handle it too. He's got a little edge to him, and that's good. He's got a little assassin mentality. That's good. And some of that's been developed, I think, with Brandon Kinsler kind of getting in his ear and mentoring him a little bit. And boy, if you can develop a quality reliever out of Sam Coonrod, because Brandon Kinsler has served as a mentor, then that signing is worth it right there. So I don't know how much longer they're going to stick with Hector, but I almost feel like he's like Vinny Velasquez. I almost feel like Vinny Velasquez is on a start-to-start basis. Okay, you had a good one? We're going to give you another one, right? Oh, you didn't have a good one? We're going to maybe look to Spencer Howard now. And I feel like it's almost become the same thing with Hector, but nobody has said that, right? Because Joe is just not that type of guy. He's not going to offer you that window into his soul. He's going to keep it all inside and keep it in-house and keep it private and support his guy publicly. But I just get the vibe that because he has other options and because, you can't afford to be blowing games in the ninth inning, that maybe Hector's on almost like a appearance to appearance basis here. You had a good one, you're going to get another one. Until he, has a good month or reels off, 3 good weeks, and then maybe the slack gets longer. But it's the game within the game. It's the team within the team. You got one guy's up, one guy's down. It's why there's so much more to managing a baseball team than just filling out a lineup and calling a hit and run now and then and making a bullpen move. You got to deal with all these personalities, all these psyches. You got to know who to kick in the butt. You got to know who to stroke. You got to know who's down. You got to know who's up, who you can count on, who's coming in next, who's going to succeed this guy because I don't have a lot of faith in this guy, but I'm not going to tell anybody I don't have a lot of faith in this guy. There's just, a lot to that job. There really is.
Well, the Phillies might have some other options for the ninth inning. One place where they don't have other options is center field because they've gone through all their internal options. And Odubel Herrera, it's a good thing for that matter that Odubel Herrera has finally seized this job. His last 8 games, 10 for 28, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 4 walks. That's more production than the Phillies got in their first 30 games combined out of center field. I remember you saying either in the podcast earlier this week or late last week that you had thought that Odubel was putting better swings on balls, even though the results hadn't kind of come yet. And now they've come over the last week. I mean, Herrera in that second game in D.C., the game-tying homer he had in the ninth, it was almost like the reverse of what the Phillies had just experienced in Atlanta, where Hector Neris gave up the game-tying homer in the ninth, and the Phillies ended up losing a crusher. Well, in D.C., where Herrera spurs the Phillies' heroics in late innings, and they pick up a come-from-behind win. So looks like Odubel's job for the time being until he goes into a very cold spell, huh?
Yeah, though I am hesitant to say he has locked it down with 8 or 9 good games. I think you need, especially in his situation, I think he needs to be consistent and I'm not saying he has to have a good game every night. It's baseball. Some nights it's just not going to be there for you. Some nights you got to tip your hat to the pitcher, but he has to be consistently good, every series, day in and day out. His focus cannot wane one bit. And when I say his focus, I mean his game preparation and his game, and the way he applies it in the game. He cannot have any of these little mental lapses that he's had in the past because there's just not a lot of patience for him with him for just his history on the field and off the field. But yeah, he's really delivered here in the last week or so, and they've won a number of ball games, and he's helped them. They've benefited from his production. I think they've benefited from his energy. So he looks like he's just a little quicker to the ball in his swing. He's mentioned he's using his legs more. I think sometimes we overanalyze these things in terms of mechanics. I really believe he's a human being. He came up, he knows he's coming back after 23 months. He knows that they've run through 3 other guys. He knows he's the 4th guy. He knows there's a bullseye on his back for a lot of reasons. He knows people are waiting for him to fail. He knows there's a job to be seized and there's not a long time to seize it. And that creates pressure. And now when you press, it's very, very hard to hit when you press. When you have a million things going through your mind, it's very hard to hit. I just, he's talked about using his legs more and working with Joe Dillon on some mechanical adjustments. I honestly think he's just not pressing as much. He had a couple good games. He breathed a little bit. He exhaled a little bit. And that's letting some of his natural ability take over. I just think he's a little more confident, a little less pressing. And that's the reason he's kind of had some good games here. We saw the big home run in the 9th inning on Wednesday night. I mean, that came after him and Harper made a defensive boo-boo out in right field that almost cost Zach Wheeler a win, right? It did cost Zach Wheeler. It led to, it was one of the contributing factors. It almost cost the team a win, a ball game. But they both bounced back and had big moments late in that game. And, I think the question of will Odubel be accepted in the clubhouse, it was a really big question in spring training, right? I think it was also a big question in Odubel's mind. And when Harper came out after that game, and Harper, I always read Harper as being on the fence, not really sure if he wants to embrace this guy. For Harper to come out after that game and say he's one of us, he's a Philly, I think Odubel now can put aside the question of, am I going to be accepted by my teammates? When the loudest voice or the most prominent voice in your clubhouse says you're Philly, you're one of us, says that, okay, you're one of them now. They got your back. They're going to accept you. They don't like what you did. Nobody likes what you did, okay? But they're going to bring you into the clubhouse and you're going to be one of them. Now you can take that acceptance question and any pressure that comes from it internally and shelve it and just focus on playing ball and playing well, helping the team win ball games. And that's how you're going to lock down that job. But I don't know that it's that 7 or 8 good games is going to do it for Odubel or Herrera. It's probably going to have to be a couple months. And even then, I don't know that he locks it down long term. I don't know that he's back next year. I think you almost take what you can get out of him in 2021, and then after that, it's a whole new ball game. They need to develop a center fielder or find a center fielder long term. But if he can help you win ball games and lock down that position this year with continued good play, that's a good thing because this team has holes. I still think they're going to need help in the bullpen, need help at the back of the rotation. If you can get your center fielder with Odubel Herrera and use some of your resources to fill some of your other holes, to trade capital, et cetera, that's a good thing.
Jim, in that answer, you mentioned how difficult it is to go up to the plate and produce when you have so many different things going through your mind. And it just made me think about Scott Kingery because Kingery took an at bat in the National Series, and it just left me thinking, like, when is the last time we saw a competitive at bat from Scott Kingery? It just seems like every time he goes up to the dish, it's a quick 1-2 strikeout, something like that. He's 1 for 14 with 8 Ks on the season. I mean, what do you think happens with him at this point? Like, is he in the position now where he has to earn everything that he gets in this organization in terms of playing time? It just seems like he's been kind of lapped by a lot of different guys, including people that weren't really even on the depth chart ahead of him at this point, 6 months ago.
Completely. I mean, Maton has lapped him and others have. And I don't see how he's going to hit himself out of this thing because he's not getting any at bats. It's being on they sent him to AAA or the alternate site, now the AAA team, to work on some things. You gotta pile up at bats when you're working on adjustments. You gotta make the adjustment part of you. Then you gotta have success with it. Then you gotta build confidence, and then you gotta kind of ride it. And he's not doing that as a bench guy. So, and I'm sure his confidence is banged up in a bad way. This game, the mind leads the body in this game. It's going to be a very tough situation for Scott for all the reasons you mentioned, the lack of production and being lapped by other guys. He was such a pivotal foundation piece just a couple of years ago, and now that all seems gone. And this front office, Dombrowski and Girardi in the dugout, they didn't hitch their wagon to this guy. They didn't sign him. They didn't draft him. They didn't bring him to the big leagues. They didn't have all those glowing quotes about how he was going to do this and that in the big leagues. They didn't give him that contract before he ever played the game in the big leagues. So I don't think there's, I think they could view him as expendable. Their 40-man roster is full, but it's really not full. I think you could get Scott Kingery through waivers and get him off the 40 if you had to. So, it's going to be a big challenge for him. He's a great kid. He's a good worker, and I almost think they need to get him down to AAA where he can get 4 at bats a day and work on those adjustments and bring some productivity back into his game and build some confidence. Because right now, as an extra piece, hey, there's only one place to play this game, and that's the big leagues. Everybody wants to be in the big leagues, but I'm not sure it's serving him well. And that's kind of how I feel about that. I hope he gets together because I have a lot of respect for the kid.
You mean that you think that the Phillies could get him through waivers just because nobody's going to assume the rest of that contract, right? Given the production?
Yeah, I mean, the contract, I think, probably makes a claim prohibitive. So, and I'm not saying you're getting rid of him. I think
Right.
he stays in the organization, goes to AAA, continues to get paid, be paid. And I'm just saying, if they came into a 40-man roster pinch, that might be a solution. And if he did get claimed, maybe a fresh start's a good thing. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're throwing him away.
Right.
I'm not saying you're releasing him. It's be like roster management, roster um, management. So, but I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I've thought about that a lot. He needs being here on the big league bench is really, it's not doing him any good. He's too young. He needs to go down and see pitches consistently every night. This is an everyday game. You gotta be in that batter's box every day if you want to get better and build confidence. It doesn't happen getting one non-competitive at bat a week. And I'm sure his teammates love having him around. He's like I said, he's a great guy. He can play a lot of different positions. I'm still a believer that there's something in there, but the only way it's going to come out is by playing baseball. He needs to go play baseball.
Looks like JT Realmuto might not be playing any baseball for a couple of days here. What's the latest on Realmuto, and also a longer-term potential injury to a Phillies reliever in Jojo Romero?
Well, Jojo Romero, I didn't get a good vibe, and I haven't gotten a good vibe. It's been over a week now since he's been down. Velocity took a little tumble, complained about an elbow. I mean, that's a bad mix, right? Joe Girardi said he's had tests. They've been very tight-lipped. But, Joe was asked about it the other day, and he said, well, no decision has been made. He said, Jojo hasn't made a decision. The team hasn't made a decision. When I hear that word, I'm not feeling real good. To me, it means that they haven't, or the kid hasn't decided if he wants to get a second opinion, and I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse here, but when you hear decision, you think, okay, could this be a surgical decision? And Joe was asked that question, and he said, he didn't say yes or no. He said, I'm not ready to say anything about it yet. So there's obviously something going on here, and it don't sound real good to me. So Didi Gregorius, his surgically repaired elbow that he had done a couple years ago is barking on him. Had some swelling there. Did not play the last couple days in Washington, or came out of one of the games. Did not play Thursday. Sounds like he's going to need a couple more days as they play the Blue Jays down in Dunedin this weekend. I don't know if that's going to end up an IL thing, but that might explain some things. He doesn't seem to be. He had a sore elbow earlier this year, right? I don't see Didi really letting the ball go from shortstop. I see him flipping the ball a lot, so maybe he's protecting his elbow. I see him trying to surround the ball a lot on his charge, almost like he's trying to build momentum on the throw, maybe because he doesn't have a lot of oomph because of his elbow. So starting to explain some things that you see in there, and that's not a good thing. You rely on his bat. He's your shortstop. And then JT's out. He had a little stomach ache and a headache or a fever, and you had to put him in protocol because of that. So it essentially buys him a little bit more time to heal up that contusion near his knee. I don't know if he's going to be back tonight. I guess if he feels better and he passes his tests, he could be back tonight in Dunedin, because that could happen quickly, or it could be a day or two. So the silver lining is he gets a little more time to mend that knee. You don't have to put him on the DL for 10 days and get him back more quickly. I know the skeptics and the conspiracy theorists and the cynics are like, well, maybe they manipulated something here, but I don't know. I think the COVID, I don't know if you can manipulate that COVID thing very much. I mean, Major League Baseball is pretty diligent in overseeing that. But certainly it's a convenient bellyache and a fever, because he can go on that list without going on the 10-day list and get a little more time on his knee. But I think you need JT Realmuto. So if he's healthy today, maybe he can get back in there. They're going to have a DH this weekend, right? So maybe he could do that. The way Andrew Knapp's swinging it, maybe it'd be good to have them both in there.
Hey, Andrew Knapp has quietly been a very solid piece of this team since the midpoint of 2019. I know he got a lot of flack here early in his career because he didn't hit much, and it would be particularly noticeable when he'd have to like pinch hit late in games and he wouldn't deliver. But he has about a 360 on base percentage since September of 2019. He's picked up some clutch hits. And to your point, I mean, when JT Realmuto hasn't been in the game, obviously the Phillies are not as good of a team, but beyond Knapp being solid at the plate, it's very clear that all of these pitchers just love throwing to him.
Yeah. And his receiving took a lot of criticism early on, but I think he's improved in his receiving. I really do. Andrew's a smart kid. He's a smart baseball player. When I've said this before, I think he's a managerial candidate down the road. I said that last year in a podcast, and that night he overran third base and got picked off, made me look like an idiot. So, knock on wood that he doesn't do something dumb tonight, but I think he's a smart baseball guy with good instincts. I mean, when you listen to him after a game talk about a pitching performance by Zach Eflin or Zach Wheeler, he caught Zach Wheeler's gem last week. He's very insightful. When he pitches and when we used to have access to the clubhouse, when he catches and we had access to the clubhouse back in the pre-pandemic world, I always would stop by his locker and talk about the pitching performance. I always found him very, very insightful. He caught a Vinny Velasquez game late last season. You can look it up. It was in September against the Blue Jays in Citizens Bank Park. Velasquez had his best game of the year, finally went like 6 innings. And, it was because Knapp sat him down in the 3rd inning and said, your pitch count is ridiculous. You're going to be out of this game in the next 5 minutes if we don't do something here. How are we going to fix this? And we need more innings because our bullpen is dead. And that was really good. So I think there's a lot to offer. Andrew Knapp has a lot to offer. I'm actually a fan. He took a lot of heat. And, his receiving wasn't real good a couple of years ago. I remember there was a game down in Miami. He had a couple of pass balls, but it's gotten better. He follows the game plan. He's pretty good with the fingers. And he took a lot of heat because he didn't get hits when he was called on off the bench early in his career. Well, I talked about it earlier. Baseball's an everyday game, and if you're not seeing pitches every day, you're going to struggle. It's very hard. But he's gotten older and more comfortable in his role, so I think he can have more success now with fewer at-bats. I think last year, the nature of last season with 2 spring trainings, with all those inter-squad games back in the 2nd spring training there at Citizens Bank Park, he got a lot of at-bats. JT went down late last season for like 12 games. He got a lot of at-bats. That really helped him. JT had a broken thumb this spring. He got a lot of at-bats. Knapp did. That's really helped him. So he's gotten more at-bats and it's shown. He's very, very solid backup at the major league level. He's done a good job for this team. You can see it in the ERAs. You can hear it. If a pitcher doesn't like throwing to, it's like I talked about Girardi. They're not going to bare their soul. If a pitcher doesn't like throwing to a guy, they're just going to say, yeah, it was fine. But these guys bend over backwards to talk about what a good job Knapp does back there. They're actually giving it an effort to talk him up. So they obviously don't feel like there's a big drop off when they throw to Knapp. So, good for him. He's done a good job back there. And I would imagine he'll probably catch his 3rd game in a row, maybe tonight in Dunedin, or with the day game and that heat on Sunday. I think we'll definitely, even if JT's back, we're going to see him some this weekend. So see if he can keep it going. It seems like all his hits lately have been pretty big. Knocked in an early run yesterday to give him a lead. Big two-run pinch hit on Wednesday night in DC. And he's not crushing the ball, but hey, contact matters. Hit them where they ain't. Put pressure on the defense, and he's been doing that.
Looking at the pitching matchups for this Phillies Blue Jays series, it's Vince Velasquez against Steven Matz in Game 1. The Phillies have seen a ton of Steven Matz over the years.
Yeah.
When he pitched for the Mets, this is his first season and with Toronto, and it got off to a pretty good start, but he struggled his last few times out. And then, Jim, looking at that Sunday game, that has the chance to be like a 4.5-hour, 9-inning game. You've got Chase Anderson on the hill for the Phillies against Robbie Ray for the Blue Jays, who throws a ton of pitches and has those short outings. So
they might be both 150 pounds when it's over in that heat. It's a 1:00 game.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, you mentioned the other day that ballpark kind of favors the hitters. You look at a couple of these pitching matchups, this could be a big offensive series for both sides.
Oh my God. I need some more time to look this up, but Vinny Velasquez pitches Friday night tonight. I can remember, I actually think Vince Velasquez's first Phillies appearance after they got him at the winter meetings of 15, was over at that ballpark in March of 16. And I think he was throwing like 98. He was, first time out. He's trying to impress everybody. But there was other times I think he got his block kind of lit up in that ballpark. I think they've made it a little bigger, but raised the walls. But it's a small ballpark. The ball flies. I mean, God, I spent a lot of time in that press box. That press box smells like feet. It's awful. It's awful. And Jose Bautista, Cole Hamels used to get a lot of pitching assignments over there for some reason. And Jose Bautista used to just dig in and wear him out. I can still see Jose Bautista hitting balls over that old scoreboard. And I started going to that ballpark in 1994, back when it was like a glorified high school stadium. Matter of fact, Dunedin High School had its locker room down the right field side. And that's what, there was nothing in right field. Now the Blue Jays have their complex and their offices over there. But there was a cinder block hut that was the visiting clubhouse that Dunedin High School used to use, and the visiting big league team would use. And, but that stadium's got a lot of history. I mean, I remember talking to Roy Halladay in the old clubhouse now with the big league team. The visiting team used to be the Blue Jays clubhouse. It's got these old pine lockers in it. It's like knotty pine. It's like you'd see in an old fishing camp up in Maine or something. And that's where they sent Roy Halladay to the minors that year. He pointed, so I got sent to the minors right over in that clubhouse. So a lot of history in that ballpark. It's hard to believe they're going to play. They're playing big league games in there, and the Phillies are going to play big league games there tonight. But I mean, Dunedin is a great town. I mean, you park on the front lawns. It's old spring training, People let you park on their front lawns for like used to be $5, now $25. There's a bar down the street called Bowser's on Douglas Ave, and the guy lets you park there, and he gives you a ticket for a free beer after the game. I think it's $10 to park there. And then, of course, on Main Street in Dunedin, you have Delco's Cheesesteaks, run by my good friend Ed Crowley. Makes an unbelievable hoagie, makes an unbelievable cheesesteak, and I haven't been in Delco's on Main Street in Dunedin since the pandemic. So, when we got kicked out of Clearwater last year, Todd Zalecki and I drove home. We left Tampa at 5:15 a.m., Tampa Airport, dropped off the car, left Tampa Airport at 5:15 a.m. I was in my driveway at 8:30 at night. So needless to say, we hustled a little bit. We exceeded the speed limit. But the true reward of that trip was the night before on a Saturday night. I went over to Delco's Cheesesteaks, said goodbye to my friend Ed Crowley and Cindy, who own the great cheesesteak shop there. And Ed made me and Todd an Italian hoagie, and he made it travel style. So I never seen this before. Like, they take the bun, they make it, and then they take all the ingredients out of the cheesesteak and they wrap that separately in tin foil, right? And then they wrap it, in the newsprint or whatever, like a real Philly hoagie. And so when you get your destination, you take the ingredients out of the tin foil, you drop it into the hoagie, into the sandwich, the roll, right? The Amoroso roll. And then you put the oil and whatever on it. And that hoagie survived like 10 states and a whole day on the road. I ate it back home. I picked it up in Dunedin on a Saturday night, and I ate it on a Sunday night in Westchester, PA. Pretty amazing story. And I can't believe I'm on a baseball podcast telling that, but that would be what I would do today if I was going to that game. And I wish I was at that game. I'd love to be in Dunedin. It's a great town. I would pick up a Delco's hoagie for lunch and go to the ball game. But I'm really sorry I told that story. I hope I don't get fired.
I can think of no other way to end this podcast than with that story. So that's stuff you only get here on the Phillies Talk podcast. He's Jim Salisbury. I'm Corey Seidman. Thanks for listening, everybody.